Welcome back, Booty Kickers. I am just giddy with excitement for this conversation we're about to have today. I saw this guest content and was literally moved to tears.
Oh,
And it's true. And all I kept thinking was, oh my goodness, this exists. This exists because this is something that is so needed that did not exist when I was growing up in the ballet world, and I'm sure probably not for you either, which is why you do what you do. So, without further ado, I am so excited to introduce you to Austin Crumley, the ballet educator. Thank you so much for being with us today, Austin.
oh yeah. I'm happy to be here, happy to talk, happy to just like keep progressing our beloved industry and see where it can go and just be in conversation with it all. It's literally what I love doing the most. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, why don't you share with us a little bit of of your story because I actually don't think I know your full story.
Oh, okay. Wow, buckle up. But I'll try and give you like the short version. But basically, in a nutshell, I was a late starter at ballet, and but I've always been involved in like musical theater, like my whole life, alongside of baseball. And so I was very athletic, doing things along the sides, kind of just like doing everything that I really wanted to do. And my freshman year, I got introduced to ballet, freshman year of high school, and I got introduced to ballet. And it was then that I was like, this is fantastic. I really like this, but I can't tell anybody. And being a young, 15-year-old boy in high school, in a public school, was definitely something you didn't want to say. Nowadays, it's a little bit, hopefully a little bit different.
Mhm.
But started ballet then at 15 and realized really quick that it was very enjoyable. It was really hard and a lot harder than I anticipated, and liked it so much that junior year I decided, you know what, let's just let this be what I do. I want to let this be what I do. It felt really called to be part of the industry. And it was for there that I knew that I needed to do something to pick up the pieces because everybody had started at 3 years old, but I was starting at 15 and I had only 2 years of experience. I was in classes with like 5-year-olds as a 16-year-old, and I needed to like amp it up. I needed to figure out a way to get my technique in so that I could become a professional, which was a very haughty dream at the time. Um, but so my ways of kind of doing that was using what I learned in baseball, which is the cross training and like the athleticism and being conditioning yourself to be able to do particular um, actions and movements and things like that so you can become a better athlete. I took that and started really kind of navigating those waters of how can that help me progress faster and in a much more efficient way. So that was kind of like the journey from the start. And I also knew that I had to have more training, technical training. So I ended up going to the University of Oklahoma and got a BFA in ballet pedagogy. And it was at my time there that my kind of like ideas behind cross training and incorporating dance science and anatomy, kinesiology, and all that fun stuff, it really enhanced my like awareness and my training. Because in college, from the ages of 18 to 21, I literally like revamped my whole body and revamped my understanding of the way in which technique can be ran so that you can equip yourself with much more efficient training in a much easier way, which is like such a funny thing. I don't know if anybody's going to buy this right off the bat, but believe me, after the conversation is over, like you're gonna be like, oh my God, I think he's right. But yeah, it was there that I took a course called Body Science for Dancers, and I was with a physical therapist that actually worked with some of like the football players at OU, and she had just such an affiliation with dance. And so after class, I would spend like probably 40 minutes just talking about anything and everything that I could, just getting like soaking things in like a sponge, and ended up befriending her and kind of set my journey forward. And so from there, I became a professional ballet dancer with the Sacramento Ballet and realized while I was dancing both in college and also in the professional world that there are some things that had to be changed because systemically the system doesn't support the dancer. It doesn't support the object that is on stage. It only supports the art and it supports like this, things like that. And that's not the conversation I think we need to have today, but that is and was and is the dilemma that we're facing in our ballet industry, and the dance industry as a whole. So I knew in order to fix myself, in order to get myself out of the kind of like pits of whatever the system caused me to become, I needed to step out and cause change from the outside. I couldn't be inside and still do it. So I decided after my performing and feeling confident in the roles that I received, I decided to stop and I decided to go teaching full time. And it was at that point that literally the next year I picked up a job here at CS Arts, which is where I'm recording from. And it's California School of the Arts, San Gabriel Valley, and it's the sister school to OSHA, Orange County High School of the Arts. And I started in 2018 and have been teaching ever since. And so from there, it was just kind of like my journey has been all about what's the best way to provide ballet instruction and ballet education to individuals. How do individuals work? What's the best way that I can relay information so it's less about me and more about the way that they're understanding concepts, which is totally different than ballet instruction tends to be, which is very teacher-centered, oriented, and you either you get it or you don't. And if you
Mm,
don't get it, you weren't cut for this, which is, and forgive the language, but this is a load of BS in my opinion. And
totally.
we can totally have a much better way of doing it. And so that's actually what I do now. And I have my like educational platform is called Ballet Reeducation, and it's to re-educate the way in which we have our foundational knowledge. But it's moreover about like having an opportunity to say and ask the questions of, is this appropriate? Is this the proper way in which I can help individuals to become a better dancer, a better human, a better person to understand how to understand the conceptual understanding to then progress in ballet and become a professional ballet dancer. And it's a whole lot more than that. The whole idea behind ballet reeducation is holistic approach and human-centered teaching and really bringing in community. Because, I mean, I have a lot of knowledge, but at the end of the day, I don't have as much knowledge as a physical therapist does, or as a dance psychologist does, or as a dance nutritionist does. And so my job is to pull people together and create this kind of cohesive society where we can say, hey, we're all learning this together. We're learning it day by day, and you can be a part of that journey. And so that's what I provide, and that's what I do. And I'm on the same journey as you guys. That's just a little bit about me, and I can go on and on and on, but I just try to keep it very simple and plain. So there you go.
I love hearing that. No, thank you for sharing all of that. And we definitely have the same mission. And I love, 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 love that you realized that you could do good for the ballet industry from outside than inside.
Yeah,
That is so huge. And I think such a selfless move because you really worked hard to be where you were. And I
yeah,
know it probably took a lot to step away from that and say, hey, I want to help the dance industry. I don't need to be the one on stage.
yeah. Well, it definitely did. And a huge shout out to my wife, who actually saw that change in me and saw how the system was kind of corrupting my identity and was showing a different side of me than she realized, and she saw the changes and she actually pinned them out and said, hey, I don't know if you realize, but this is what's happening. And it's amazing what happens when you're in community, because it doesn't have to be a partner or a romantic relationship. It can be someone you're accountable with that just simply says, I'm noticing these patterns in you. I love you enough to say XYZ. And so she was actually the one to do that for me. And because I love her and, I respected her opinions and her intelligence, I was like, you know what, you're right. I have to stop. As much as I've worked toward this moment and I could have a longer career, I know that there is going to be a sacrifice if I were to choose the longer career. So she's a smart cookie, and I'm glad that I listened to her because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her.
Shout out to her. What's her name?
Yeah. Her name is Sarah with
Sarah?
an H. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. On
Yeah.
behalf of the entire ballet world, thank you. Literally, because, it's such a sad thing, Austin. I'm sure you have these conversations too. There are so many of us who grew up in the dance world and were very much part of the industry and now carry the scars
Yeah.
of something that is meant to be so beautiful. Ballet to me is one of the most beautiful, pure forms of communication, of emotional expression, and not only ballet, obviously, dance of all of its kinds is all about expressing emotions. And when we express them, other people get to experience our expression of them. And so it becomes this huge collective shared experience of emotions that are being communicated through dance, whatever style of dance it is. And so it's meant to be such a beautiful, beautiful thing in the world, and it is. And yet, I know so many dancers who are walking around, honestly, with trauma. Let's just call it what it is, with
Yeah.
trauma, not to mention injuries and all kinds of things. A lot of it stemming from how we were treated as dancers and especially how we were educated.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether, whether it's self-worth or body image or, I got so excited when you were talking about bringing the baseball training into your ballet, like,
Yeah.
yes! It's
Yeah, I figured you would.
yeah. I mean, when I was teaching in a studio and was put in charge of stretch and strength conditioning, I didn't know what I was doing at the
Yeah.
time. Like, this was just in the very, very beginning. And I just started nerding out on it and learning everything that I could, like studying physical therapy reels and all of this stuff and putting together the curriculum. And I saw the impact that it was making for my students. And I went, oh my goodness, if this had existed when I was a pro, I wouldn't have lost my career.
Yeah.
And so just seeing that is really what lit a fire in me to actually take this track and become a certified personal trainer and learn all the things that I need to learn. And so I just love that as a young man, you were like, oh, hey, I know what to do over here. Let me bring this over here. And it's one of those like common sense things that I don't think enough dancers realize the impact that it makes. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure, again, with lots and lots of love and respect and honor, I'm not sure enough teachers realize either because most teachers, including me back, you know, baby stage before I got into all of this, we do what we know and we do what we experience. And we think that
Yeah.
that's what we need to do when it's not actually what's best for the students. And what so moves me to tears, I still get moved to tears by your content, Austin. I just love it because it's so human centric.
Good.
It is. And like when you're like, hey, we had a couple weeks off. Let's stretch our hamstrings and hip flexors on the floor.
Yeah.
Like that's makes sense, but how many teachers go into it that way, right? Or,
Yeah.
hey, okay, I know you danced really hard this weekend and how your ankles feeling? Looks like they're a little tired. Yeah, okay, so just be aware of that when we're in the center. Like
Yeah.
teaching students to think for themselves and what's going on in our bodies, right? I think that's something that as dancers, we're not in tune with what's going on in our bodies because we were kind of raised the opposite. What would you say to that?
Oh man. It's like so many ideas kept popping into my brain, and there's the starting point I think is when we first start teaching ballet, it probably is because we need the income. Like, let's be honest. And if you're out there and you heard that and you laughed and it's like I remember when I was a pro and I was teaching on the side because honestly, we don't get paid enough.
Mm-mm.
And when I was teaching on the side, I had it better than most people because I actually like I got a degree in teaching ballet. But even that, after the fact, I even revamped that degree and made things better. Oh, I totally forgot about my story. Like I have a master's in education. I completely left that out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
please jump back in.
totally forgot about that. Yeah, add it in, but and even before I got my master's in education, I realized that there was a better way, that there's certain things that I can do as a teacher that make that could make the experience better. But that's just who I am. Like that's the person that I am. I'm a wanderer and I'm an enabler. It's just like my things. And so I'm always asking those questions, trying to find the solutions and trying to make things better, which can be very annoying for some people. Like I know that, but like that is what's that constant drive for me. But digressing or like moving back to the initial point is as teachers, we start off because we're trying to make ends meet. And then when we do that, we have to we tend to default to this like very psychological realm where we're saying, oh, in the front, I'm in the center of attention. I need to know what I'm doing, and I have to take a lot of pride in this. Otherwise, Otherwise, or the kind of standpoint is if I mess up, they're not going to see me as the person who knows it all, who is the expert in the room. They're going to see me as weak. And so then there's that fear-based tactics that come into play of like, well, if I just say, how'd you not get that? Suddenly they fear me. Suddenly I am the expert of the room. And it's such an easy way out, but it's not the best way to do it. It's works. Yes, it does produce a lot of amazing dancers, but my question for you is, at what cost? And there is a cost to everything that you do. There is a season for everything that you do. There is a time for it. And for everything that you do, you reap what you sow, and there are repercussions or consequences or there's benefits. And so you constantly need to think about what is it that you are doing and providing, and then ultimately what's going to be the result because of that. So teachers, it's like this weird, interesting avenue. If you're taking that fear-based tactic approach, you will get results. And that's like how the army operates. You're going to get a result, but you're not going to invest in the human. And you need to think for a second, what are you actually trying to teach them? Are you trying to teach them to become amazing dancers? Okay, cool. But then when does that end? Typically 35 years. Like that's the last potential year, like traditionally speaking, that dancers end up making it into a professional company. After that, you start seeing dropout, dropout, dropout because of a lot of reasons, typically injuries. So then you need to revamp and think, wait a second, what is going to assist this person who is learning this technique? What is going to allow them to be successful beyond that? Because we are looking at professional world, like if that's the end result for you, if you're thinking professional world, how can you set up the human with skills, tools, resources, strategies to be able to withstand the fear-based things that are coming from the director or from the board or from fellow dancers who are out there for competing for roles and things like that? You can give them supportive, positive kind of instruction and strategies to get them through to that where you're not harming other individuals. And then you're not also harping on what was done before, which is that feud and, I can't believe she got that and I didn't get this, or he got that and I should have received that. This new approach and this different outlook on ballet instruction and dance instruction as a whole, let's be honest, is supporting that human at the core. Because if the human's needs are met, everything will just fall in place. That's Maslow's hierarchy. It's like the needs. And so if you're getting their basic needs to survive, suddenly the brain can work and you can get all those things. The traditional approach actually dampens Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So if you're interested, definitely look up Maslow, Maslow, and like look up those needs hierarchy because that will just be like you're gonna be
Mind
blown away
blowing.
by all
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll put
And
a pin in it because I can go on and on.
yeah, I was gonna say I could do it. I was gonna say, and that all starts with safety. And
Yeah,
when
it
you
does.
don't feel safe in class, as a dancer who had times where I did not feel safe in
The
class,
same.
it impacts everything. And I think something that is shifting, and I feel the shift, and I know you and I are part of it, that's our passion, is this, hey, remember you're a person, not just a performance. And you matter, and what you feel matters. And, I love how you did a reel recently about helping the dancers understand, because you just go and five and six and seven and eight and da da da, right? And
Yeah.
then like they
Yeah.
didn't get it. What do you mean you didn't get it? You should have been paying attention, versus wait, did you actually understand? Okay, tell me what you heard. Tell me what you understood. What are you feeling in your body? I love I love observing from the internet the way that you teach because I think it's so powerful and so unique in shaping amazing dancers and, as you were just saying, shaping amazing humans who learn how to think for themselves, who learn how to then give that same grace and that same understanding to the people around them, whether in the dance world or at home or at work, wherever they go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I think the biggest pushback that I get from my approach is like you're losing instructional time if you end up having these small conversations, or if you pull in the student and you say like, what did that feel like? What's going on? And like, you have those kind of like moments where you're not doing dance, but what you have to consider is it's kind of like it really is kind of like you're making a pot roast. And if you're vegan, I don't think I have an analogy right now, but it's like making a pot roast, or making any meat. If
Mhm.
you allow it to marinate and you spend the time grinding that, like mincing that garlic and cutting up the herbs and doing whatever it is with the vinegar and the sauces, and then you let it just sit and you let it just sit over there and you don't touch it and you just marinate for at least 20 minutes, but definitely hopefully longer, you're going to get a much, much richer meal, and you didn't really do anything aside from the prep work in advance. So that's what I'm doing with these dancers. I'm giving them the prep work. I'm giving them the minced garlic, the herbs and the sauces and the vinegars, the acidic breakdowns and the supports to make the protein like break apart and like all that good stuff, so that when they're later up in the end of the season or they're go beyond me and they're in college, they have the tools to be able to go, oh my God, I made the connection. How did I do? Oh, that's right, because I worked on it before and I have the foundation. And so if you never really actually reach the foundation with your dancers by giving them the conceptual understanding and like going up on the Bloom's taxonomy and like the hierarchy of understanding concepts for your cognition, you're never giving them the opportunity to allow ballet to become a part of themselves. Because right now it's such an interesting, and like I'm getting chills like just thinking about it,
Yeah.
because it's such an interesting choice that tradition does, but then 21st century instruction will do. Tradition will always say, you do this, you do pliés, tendus, dégagés, la 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 la, and you keep going until you reach your reverence. No questions asked. If you don't get it, you don't get it. But what does that do? It only gives you that superficial understanding, which gives way to injuries, which gives way to improper muscles that are coming into play, and many different things. But by taking that small moment of time, maybe at the beginning, or maybe when a new concept is announced or given, you can take that small bit, make sure they get it, assess. Did they get it? Good. Build on, assess. And then you got that, like you built that foundation for them. And it allows those dancers to be fully equipped and set up and holistically enforced to understand the technique. And if you understand the technique, you can understand the art form. So it's just like, it's such an interesting, like, people always come up with that question. And I'm like, okay, you ready for the long answer, or do you want something that's like short? But that's pretty much like my rebuttal, if you would, to those kinds of questions, because it does work. And like especially with my master's in education, I teach biology during the day, which is another thing that I
Oh,
that I left out. And so by day, I teach biology, and I'm working with 150 students with all diverse backgrounds, with all diverse learning needs, and I have to change my instruction to fit that 150 outlooks. And so it's kind of the same way in dance. You have all these students, and they're all dancers, yes, but they're all humans that put on the leotard, that put on the tights, that put on the shoes, and they're coming into your classroom with learning differences and learning needs. And so it's not that you need to create individual plans, but it's moreover that you're thinking, okay, where's my class? All right, I'm gonna throw my net. I'm gonna throw my fish net, and then try and like create a bigger net to land on all these students so that I can capture as many as possible through my instructional design.
I love it. I love it so much.
I'm an
It's
analogy guy, sorry.
no, no, no. I am too. I'm an analogy girl. I love it. That's so powerful. And I think whenever it's all about the teacher, like you said, like different learning styles don't matter. Different bodies that move in different ways and have hypermobility here or scoliosis here, or
Yeah,
it's never going to look like this because of the way this body was, designed and structured. Like
yeah,
all that kind of stuff has been so much like we expect everybody to be a cookie cutter, the whole core to ballet. You're supposed to look like one body on stage, whether it's body image or movement style or whatever. Like it's still this idea of uniformity
Yeah.
that just isn't true to life. And I think that a lot of ballet education in particular has been structured that way, which really does a disservice to the dancers because just like any other form of education, every single human being learns differently, understands differently, communicates differently. And if we don't take that into account, whatever it is that you're teaching, you're not really giving that student the highest level of education that you can. You're
Yeah.
just showing up and teaching a class. I think there's
Yeah.
a difference between teaching a class and actually educating someone.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, huge difference. And like, let's disclaimer this. If you're going after a long day of work and you're doing it for the money, believe me, I understand. I understand the attitude. But at the end of the day, you need to also have this moment of realization that what you're giving to students or giving to the humans that are in your class, it's going to develop them. And so if it's the attitude that you have, or if it's the content that you're giving, or if it's whatever it is that you're deciding to, come in with, that's their outlook. That's what they're getting. That's what they're receiving. And so you like being a teacher is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the people who, are just like, I'm just going to get it for the money and then move forward. Like if that's something that you're doing, survive, girl. But like at the same time, try to have that moment for yourself where you're thinking, but how is it that I'm showing up? Can I provide just an inkling more so that I can get these students to understand something or push forward, the reward is not the monetization, but it's in that glow up and it's in that whatever the individual gets at the very end of it, because that's what's happening. The process towards the product, that's where it's all at. So just a little encouragement for those out there, because I've been there. Sometimes I feel that way too, even throughout the year, where it's like, I'm doing this for the money. I'm doing it for the money because you have to have those like, those incentives kind of thing. But you're not bad for feeling that way. It's a part of life. But definitely push for more.
Yeah. Or maybe you're just trying to survive recital season. We've also all been there.
Oh yeah, totally been there.
So let's flip this conversation for a minute.
Sure.
So we've been talking about the dance teacher side of things.
Hmm.
What would you say to a dancer? I was going to say dance student, but could be of any age, right? What would you say to
Yeah.
a dancer who is showing up in class for more traditional methods? Do you
Oh, okay.
have any advice on how, because obviously some things we control, some things we can't control.
Yeah.
So if you're showing up to a class, you can't control how the class is being taught. But do you have any words of wisdom for a dancer on how she or he can get the most out of that class, having no control over how they're being educated? Did that question make sense?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Man, you're playing a game when you get into class and you get a traditional teacher or you get someone who is just like giving the combinations, gives a general correction, and then moves on, you know? What I would love for you to do is be brave and take the challenge of raising your hand.
Ooh, that's scary.
I know it's scary. I know it is. I remember when I was training, I remember like being in class and one of the teachers, I will like leave them nameless, because it's not their fault. But one of the teachers said that like no questions asked. Like you just take what we're going to do and you're going to go forward with it. And so I just took that as like, okay, I'll take what I can and I'll, learn what I can. So there's a couple of ways that you can do it. If you don't feel brave, feeling like you can raise your hand right in the middle of class, or they say something, they give a correction, and then they're ready to move on, that's when you would raise your hand. And like if it wasn't clear, say that and say and don't say like what you said was unclear,
Yeah.
because they could say something pretty bad about that. You have to play the game, y'all. If you're trying to get this and you have a traditional instructor, you need to like see their identity according to who they are and like how they see themselves. So I love this because it's so fun. But you would be like, thank you for giving me that correction or giving us that correction. I was wondering if you could say it in another way. How's that going to hurt? They just say no and move on. Okay, cool. Like you got your answer. That's an awesome way to rephrase those types of things. And instead of raising your hand and saying, I don't get it, you can then say something like that, or like lovely, like a great correction. I think that was really great. I'm having a problem with this. Does that apply? How so? Then you're making those connections because honestly, y'all, like teachers, it doesn't matter if they're traditional or if they're like me and they teach for the 21st century. They're going to love questions because it shows that you're interested and it shows that you want more and you're hungry. The students who, it's exactly the same as the students who go first or go again without being asked. It's the same thing. By asking a question, you're inquiring upon their knowledge and getting more out of the class. The worst that they can say is, no, we don't have time, or remind me at the end of class, or during the next combination, I'm going to come up to you and I'll say it. So there's those things because we only have, like, let's be honest, sometimes we only have an hour to teach ballet class. We don't have time to stop the middle of class and explain a concept unless the teacher deems it's necessary. So it's kind of like a tricky game that you got to play, especially if you're in the traditional sense. Now, what I always tell my students is if you go to a class and you're finding that the um, technical things are a little bit, unsound, like they're forcing your turn out or they're asking you to do things that you're not ready for and they're forcing it, then leave. Like you're not going to be harmed because you picked up your stuff and you left the class. Sure, you're going to lose money. It's so crazy. I know.
So crazy. Like,
I'm so rebellious and like saying this, woo, but like,
no, but
who's
it
paying for the
like,
class, guys? You
yeah,
are.
it's so empowering. I'm gonna start crying all over again. Like, I mean, the classes where you're in there and let's just call it what it is. Like, the teacher's being a total jerk.
Yeah.
And the student is standing there kind of shivering inside because they don't feel like they can leave because
Uh-huh.
there's a class and they have to do what the teacher says. I love that you train your students and that you're sharing this here. Thank you. Of just that like reminder, hey, you're the one paying for the class.
Yeah.
You still have control over your life. You can
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah, it gets pretty hard. The fine line that I play with my students is like tradition and honoring the people who are before us because they have a story to tell. They can give a lot. And I've had my fair share of all of that. I've had amazing teachers in the sense of they're rich in history and they can provide a lot. But there were questionable things that they provided that I just shrugged off. And I just felt like I have a little inner rebel in me, and I just decided, you know what, that's not going to suit me, and so I'm not going to do it. And yes, there were repercussions to my actions, but at the end of the day, I did what was best for me, and sometimes that, caused XYZ to happen. But I won't get into the depths of that, but like you have to have this sense of like inner self-worth
Mhm.
just because someone is at the front of the room and they have a resume and they have done all these ballets and they know this person and that person and here, or they're getting all this money and recognition, they have a million followers, does not mean that they can force your body to do something. It does not mean that they can call you a name. It does not mean that they can demean you and they can force you or do anything, abuse you and do like your worth is not tied to them. Your worth is apparent, it's present, it's already there. Nobody can take your worth away from you except yourself. So don't let somebody take your worth. Protect it, manage it, and only give it out when you feel like someone is worthy of your worth. Look at there's the chills again.
I'm like, mic drop.
Seriously, it's
Yeah.
it's it's a systemic challenge that we are combating as far as worth goes because ballet is built for you to remain quiet as a student and
Yeah.
for you to take it and to move on and to try and fight for approval. But that's not how it works in the 21st century, guys. It shouldn't have worked before like that, but that's not how it works now. So push for better and spend your money on better. Because there's better out there, guys. You don't have to go to the person who is the most amazing, whatever. It's cool. And then if you do, equip yourself with the mental resilience and the emotional resilience, psychological resilience, with resilience to withstand those types of things. That's a whole nother ballpark that I love talking about. But hey, we ain't got time for that.
I know, I was like, dang it. I was just looking at the time. Okay, let's go there for like 2 minutes. Can we go
Yeah,
there
let's do
for
it.
like 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Because I think this is another huge, 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 huge part of ballet in particular. I know dance across the board, that is kind of coming to light that really, really excites me because it goes back to this idea of self-worth and that who you are as a dancer matters. Something that I love seeing you do is bring the emotional in to your teaching, and I think you do that in such a balanced way, right? Like, you're doing the technique, you're doing, the anatomy, but then you also bring in really the emotions of the person who's doing it, and I just have seen some content where you addressed it in a really beautiful way. So, I know we're almost out of time, but I can't let this episode end without giving you just, like, 2 minutes to speak to
Oh
that.
yeah. I'd be happy to pour into this. So, a lot of the practices, a lot of what I do has been practice over time, of course, and then learning over time. Like my master's in education has equipped me with so much to just bring into to ballet education. But really, when it comes down to it, I start class, I plan class, I in advance, I'm thinking about class with knowing that humans are going to enter the room and they're going to enter in with differentiation. They're going to enter in with a variety of emotions, of experiences, of that their day is going to fill what they're feeling in that moment. And that kind of like misconception of leave your feelings at the door, you're in ballet class kind of thing. I'm like, bring them in, guys, because we can use it. Like we can use it to showcase our steps and inform the way in which we are moving our body to showcase emotion and to show connection with our audience. And that's the real point of performing is to be able to connect and to move and to make somebody in the audience have a catharsis and have that moment of like, oh my God, it makes sense, you know? Um, so with that in mind, I always plan that out of knowing that like my plans are probably going to go into the trash. And most of the time, guys, they do because I'm dealing with humans and humans, we can change like hour by hour, day by day. And that's okay. It's fine to do that. So when my students come into class, I teach at a very niche high school where we teach during the day. Me specifically, I teach biology, and then they hop on over to conservatory afterwards. And so they're here all day long. Sometimes they're here till 9 p.m., 8:30 to 9 p.m. at the same site. And so it gets very, very daunting and very fatiguing to be in the same place, to be at the same people, to see the same faces over and over again. So that's kind of like my niche situation. And so sometimes I'll get them in and I'm like, oh, all right, I know what today is going to look like, you know, and I can feel it. And so if I'm not planning like in advance, it was supposed to be an Allegro week or it's supposed to be I'm going to assess this and all that fun stuff. What I can do, because I have the knowledge of conceptual understanding and where it needs to go, I can then say, you know what, that can wait. It's not my need to assess their ability to do this technical step is not dependent upon today. I can do this next week, you know? And so like as a teacher, I'm reflecting upon what they're giving me and I can make those changes on the spot because I have equipped myself with the knowledge to do so. And I do that all, I teach all of that, scaffolded design on curriculum mapping, all that stuff. I do that with with my program. And so there's like those things that I'm able to do when I see my dancers come in and I can make those quick changes. For them, it's kind of like I always ask a question at the beginning of class. I always want to relate back and give them some things of like, how's the day? What's going on? A lot of them have had AP, advanced placement test this past 2 weeks. And so I'm like, you guys a little dead? And like, you know, there's a little laughing matter. I'm like, how you doing? You know, let's get that side of our brain, the creative side up and flowing so that we can kind of let that more academic side rest. And but I'll always have a check-in and I'll always start my class off with just like, let's feel our bodies. What do we need? Borrowing an exercise from one of my former teachers and we like get into it. And then after that, we just go right back up into like what we're supposed to be doing. So it's just, we have to meet the human, like I said before. And sometimes that means like meeting them where they're at. Maybe they're at 20% and you have to give 80. Maybe they're at 100% and you're like, that's cool. I don't have to quote unquote do anything today. But at the end of the day, your job is to make sure that your students understand the content, but not just understand it, but that they can apply it and then they can evaluate whether or not that content it fits in this particular way or that particular way. And then they can analyze and then ultimately they can create something out of it. It becomes them. It becomes a part of their toolbox to then go off and they can become choreographers or they can see a piece of work and they can critique it. And like, there's all these different things that we want to equip dancers to be able to do. And it doesn't start with technique, it actually starts with humanity. And so it's kind of an interesting, very fundamental approach to teaching ballet that I don't think a lot of people take into consideration. But it's kind of like my journey. I saw a way that like to help make ballet make sense for me. And then now I'm seeing a way to help make ballet make sense for humans. And it doesn't have to be that hard because science just says it's not that hard. Um, yeah, I'll put a period there.
No, that's so good. Oh my gosh, Austin, I have loved every second of this conversation. I would love to keep going, but I know we need to wrap it up. Before we go, I know that you have, speaking of toolbox, some amazing tools for teachers that you're in the process of launching, right? Something new
Yeah,
for summer? I would love
yeah.
to have you share that.
For sure. So I'm very excited because this year I'm launching my signature program. I call the Summer Training Lab. And I call it a lab because it is an experimentation. We are experimenting with what's going to work for us and our students and our needs, our studios, schools, blah, blah, blah. Oh, excuse me. But in the summer training lab, this is not just a summer opportunity. What is inside of it are three courses, basically. There's the foundations lab, which teaches you everything from lesson planning to understanding, conceptual understanding, like Bloom's taxonomy and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to where does that fit in for you as a ballet educator? And it gives you all the tools, resources to be a ballet educator. You can literally end that course calling yourself a ballet educator for the 21st century because it'll equip you with everything. And then the second one is the curriculum lab. And that one is all about giving you more in depth about how to write curriculum. What is curriculum mapping? What does tiered instruction look like? What is scaffolded design? How can you help students to be able to understand concepts, but then take it to that next level that I was talking about, which is application, evaluation, analyzing, and then in creating. Then lastly, there's this course that I like to call Teaching Smarter, and it's the dance science course. And I'm actually working with Delaney Mena. She's an NSAM personal trainer for dancers. And she and I are working together to create this kind of like core course that helps dance teachers understand anatomy, how it can influence movement. Not only that, but then how you can actually incorporate basic conditioning, personal training exercises for your dancers within curriculum throughout the whole year so that they can get ballet techniques. They can get
I
ballet technique
love
done
this.
faster, easier, efficiently. And it's like so cool. I'm so excited for this thing because it's like I'm such a giver. Like all of this, the total value is off the rocker. Like all three of these things. If you tier, there's three tiers. Well, excuse me, there's four tiers, but in summer training lab. But those three courses are going to be available all year round. But the best time that you can possibly like invest in yourself and also with other like-minded educators doing the same thing is in the summer and
Mm,
it's in this training lab. So it's whether you want self-paced or you want some more coaching or you want full-on mentorship with me, it's all there and it's available for you. And it's it's just I don't know. I think it's not to toot my own horn, but I developed it with
your
like
own horn.
y'all in mind. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I was
developed
gonna
it with you guys
say.
in mind. You're busy
Yeah.
people. You have a lot going on, and so I'm only going to give you what is necessary for you to like push yourself to become the person you have always wanted to be for your students and for yourself. And so that's what this is, the summer training lab. And early bird pricing is going to be on June 1st. That's when it starts. And the last day that I'm going to take anybody is June 12th. So
Okay.
if you go on my wait list, you'll be
Woo,
the first one to know. And there's a bunch of bonuses and discounts and things that are going to be announcing. And it's just, I'm so stoked for it. It's going to be such a fun summer.
for sure. Oh my gosh, I'm just listening to you and all of the different aspects that you're touching on in it and everything, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness." It sounds like literally everything that you need
Yeah,
to be the most incredible dance teacher ever, whether you're
yeah.
teaching ballet or whatever you're teaching. Is it for any dance background?
It is. I mean, I am the ballet educator, and so I'm primarily focusing on ballet design and ballet curriculum. But guys, this is so applicable to any dance curriculum. It's just part of it. Of course, like long term, I may like revamp it and change it into like a dance training lab or something of a sort. But that's where like my niche is. So it is ballet oriented. However, it's easily translatable to any style, anything that you do inside of your studio if you're a director or anything like that, like it's super easy to translate. And I did it on purpose. I spent 7 months, long nights, all that stuff, really making sure that this was things that you're not going to walk away with like, oh, but you should also buy this. Like, I don't actually care about that stuff. I want the world to change and I want our industry to see better days. And so that's what this is about. I have a full-time job. I don't need the money.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's awesome. All right. What is the best way for people to find out more information about that?
Yeah, you can find my handle is the same on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify for my podcast is the Ballet Educator, and you can find me on there. Shoot me a DM if you have any questions. I am like a chatterbox if you haven't figured that out already. So I'd be happy to help you out, especially if you're like, I don't have any money. I just want some like feedback and stuff like that. Dude, send it my way. I'd be happy to give it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Austin. This has been an amazing conversation. I feel like we could probably talk all day and still
Oh
just
yeah.
be scratching the surface. But yeah, thank you so, so much for being with us today. All right,
Yeah.
booty kickers, you heard it here. If you are a teacher, definitely go check out his ballet training lab. What do
Oh,
you call
summer
it?
training lab.
Summer training lab. And don't miss out. That starts June 1st to June 12th. It's the cutoff
Yeah,
date.
that's when the early bird
Yeah.
pricing ends, so you're gonna want to hop in on that.
All right. And whether you're a teacher or a dancer, please, please, please go follow him at That Ballet Educator. I know that I get so much value out of his content, both from an encouragement perspective that the dance world is changing and also a lot of practical wisdom. So, Austin, thank you again for being with us today. And Booty Kickers, I'll catch you on the next episode. Keep kicking it.